Alright. I know the Secretary of Defense is not technically a politician, but... And so for the Modern Problems 50 subscriber special, you know I had to do it to him. So, Pete Hegseth, veteran, media personality, and now head of the United States Armed Forces. Of course, you'd probably place a few more unsavory labels on Mr. Hegseth, but that's not entirely the point of this video. I'm sure you could tell by my tone how I view the man, as I was inspired to make this video because I got catfished by a fake report of him stepping down, but again, that's not the point. While he certainly has his flaws, I think it's worth diving into his background to more objectively evaluate his skills as a leader and likely impact on the US military. So buckle up for this edition of Politician Review, Pete Hegseth. In a world divided, very few people stir up opinions like Mr. Pete Hegseth, defender against DEI and woke, conservative media star, and apparently skipper of classified information protocol training. While he may have made some large changes to the way things are done in the Pentagon, some probably for the better, it's not quite clear how long Mr. Hegseth can keep his grip on the top seat. Aides are dropping left and right while accusations fly wildly. Does Mr. Hegseth deserve this treatment? Well, let's start by looking at his background to see how he ended up in this role before we make any judgment. So who is Pete Hegseth, and how did he end up running the U.S. Department of Defense? Born in Minneapolis in 1980, Hegseth excelled as both a student and an athlete. This pedigree earned him a place at Princeton University, where he majored in politics while also playing basketball. While there, he led the conservative student paper, the Princeton Tory, where he began to air his thoughts on New School feminism and its leftist agenda, notably. After college, Hegseth launched his career in the military, commissioning as an infantry officer in the Army National Guard in 2003. While I can confirm he served in Guantanamo Bay, Iraq, and Afghanistan, it's hard to tell exactly what he was doing there. Online discussion around his role versus his formal background make things a little cloudier, as he was an infantry officer without attending Ranger School, Airborne School, or Air Assault School. Well, this isn't impossible. It does seem a little odd, but then in the context of his role in civil affairs, this lack of formal training makes a little more sense. His role was more focused on the winning hearts and minds aspect of war, which the US is of course notoriously good at. As a combat veteran, he did face down an RPG attack from terrorist militants, and he did earn 2 Bronze Stars and a Combat Infantryman badge, as well as an Expert Infantryman badge. His experience shows that he was somewhat decent on the admin side of things, and he did put his life on the line for the goals of the US. It should be noted he wasn't continuously in combat, as he did spend some time at the now failed Bear Stearns Investment Bank as an equity research analyst during the middle of his Army tenure. Transitioning from the battlefield to the public sphere, Hegseth became a prominent veterans advocate, leading groups like Vets for Freedom and Concerned Veterans for America. During this time, he also received a master's in public policy while continuing his efforts with veteran-focused PACs, or political action committees. Then he moved into media, making a name for himself as a Fox News host and commentator, known for his unapologetically conservative views and energetic style. He hosted Fox and Friends Weekend from 2016 onwards with some notably questionable comments about unknown Middle Easterners caravanning towards the US border. So he clearly had the president's ear at the time, a notorious viewer of Fox News content. As trouble always follows Mr. Hegseth, he did have a few lawsuits directed at or around him, including one about an axe-throwing incident that left a U.S. military academy drummer injured, and another about claims he made regarding Dominion voting systems, election ballot counting machines. He also rejoined the National Guard in 2019, while still in the media, with another notable incident including his barring from serving for Biden's inauguration due to one of his tattoos being flagged as a Christian nationalist symbol. His political ambitions were also clear early on, as he unsuccessfully ran in the 2012 Republican Senate primary in Minnesota, and then he became a close advisor to Donald Trump during the 2016 campaign, following his ouster from the Concerned Veterans for America group for, you guessed it, alcoholism and financial mismanagement. He aimed for the role of Secretary of Veterans Affairs in Trump's first administration, but was ultimately passed over for some of his more extreme positions about changing the system. And then in 2025, he was appointed Secretary of Defense, taking the reins of the Pentagon at a time of global uncertainty. He faced some challenges to his ascension, largely directed at his prior alcohol abuse and financial mismanagement, as well as payments to a sexual assault accuser. Ultimately, he was confirmed as J.D. Vance broke the tie with the winning vote, and so the self-proclaimed restorer of the warrior ethos began his appointment. As you can see, Hegseth had a rather cloudy career up until his time at Fox, perpetually surrounded by controversy due to his bombastic style, unapologetic support for ultra-conservative causes, and a questionable character. Moving on to the fun part. Let's look at Mr. Hegseth's policy direction. I'll try to stay clear of avoiding national strategy and focus more on Hegseth's direct ambitions for the DoD. First, military modernization. Hegseth has championed efforts to streamline the Pentagon's bureaucracy and prioritize new technologies to help prepare the U.S. for the future of warfare. He aims to cut fraud, waste, and abuse in line with DOJ's broader priorities to reduce overspending. Meanwhile, the DoD budget is actually looking to expand with additional resources, likely heading to one-way attack drone innovation, strengthened borders, focused on curbing the cartels, and an Iron Dome-style missile defense system for the mainland U.S. Interesting, expensive, maybe not so practical. And then the warrior ethos, as I mentioned before, he's emphasized a return to the warrior culture in the armed forces, focusing on readiness, discipline, and morale. This means anti-DEI, anti-woke, and more meritocracy. In principle, this can be a good thing, putting the best talents and capabilities in the best position to defend the country. In practice, this can be seen as a crackdown on some political enemies, but honestly, I think this could be a good thing for the military. It really depends on the optics, though, as it could impact already poor recruitment numbers. In terms of alliances, Hegseth has supported a strengthened U.S.-NATO relationship, while also pushing these NATO allies to increase their own spending and take a more active role in global security. He aligns with the Trumpian perspective, which makes a lot of sense as a loyalist. In practice, the US is now undermining NATO's efforts, but it looks to be having the desired effect of bolstering non-US NATO spending. And finally, global competition. Hegseth has been vocal about confronting threats from China, Russia, and Iran, advocating for a robust U.S. presence in key regions and a willingness to use force if necessary. As you can see with the deployment of 2 carriers in the Middle East to combat the Houthis, he wants to project force. Although as it stands, it looks like China, Russia, and Iran are looking to call the U.S.'s bluff. Hegseth will likely have some blatant challenges coming his way in the next few years. Will he be strong enough to stand up to the threat? We'll have to see. And so on paper, his policies align with a strong, assertive national defense and a modern, lethal military force. However, critics argue that some of his rhetoric can be a little polarizing, and his focus on warrior culture sometimes overshadows the complexities of running a massive modern military. He's projecting a strong image right now, but it remains to be seen if these policies can be effectively executed. And so for these reasons, Pete Hegseth's policy score gets a 5 out of 10. He brings clear priorities and energy to the job, but faces challenges in balancing bureaucracy and innovation with the traditional warrior mentality. Hegseth's run as Secretary of Defense has been nothing short of a news spectacle thus far. You see a lot of talks about returning to lethality and the warrior ethos, but most of his energy goes to internal battles instead of turning these ideas into action. His military background technically gives him credibility with the troops, but you don't see unwavering support from the rank and file that you may expect. And his clear loyalties to Trump create this whole aura of unseriousness around his character and credibility. We have to talk about the elephant in the room, the whole Signalgate thing. Sending out classified information on an unapproved messaging service and then getting caught twice? Anyone else would have been removed for the gross incompetence, but he just follows the classic Trump playbook: deny, project, and blame. This is why his aides are leaving already and trashing him on the way out, reminiscent of Trump's first term with some cabinet members. He blames anyone and everyone for his poor accountability. And this isn't even a left-wing talking point. Republicans are upset about this unprofessionalism too. While his warrior ethos thing may have won him some supporters, his lack of professionalism has lost him a lot more, even some of those in his camp. And something interesting I've been following recently is that he's actually very untransparent. I'll direct you to Preston Stewart's video on this, a great overview and insightful commentary. Essentially, Hegseth is using inconsistent and uncited numbers to support claims about the US's degradation of Houthi capabilities. The lack of clarity here, as well as bragging with numbers that change weekly, is a bad look. Regardless of the outcome, the American people are being treated like robots who should believe whatever comes out of the DoD, even when reality suggests a different story. Anyways, enough with the rant. I think it's clear that Hegseth is a divisive character, both in military circles and outside of them. A loyalist maverick with little experience in managing large organizations, he has a lot to prove on this front before I think the military, and even the country, will rally around him. So for these reasons, Pete Hegseth has earned a leadership score of 3 out of 10. Effective at rallying ultra-right supporters and bringing an anti-deep state energy to the Pentagon, but someone who I don't see driving broader consensus. A Trump loyalist and a hypocrite, mired in controversy, whether it be essentially texting classified information or drinking on the job, Pete Hegseth has some work before he can win the support of anyone outside the right-wing camp. After all, I did make this video as a reaction to getting catfished about his resignation. Pete Hegseth has definitely made waves, but whether those waves are actually moving the ship forward or just flooding the lower decks is up for debate. He did come in swinging, launching a top-to-bottom review of every major defense acquisition program and slashing consulting contracts like he's on a reality show about government efficiency. He brags about billions in savings while redirecting funds to next-generation warfare projects. The right loves this. Finally, someone's draining the swamp and putting money toward the warfighter. But the left and a lot of career officials are worried he's gutting oversight and killing off expertise just to score political points. I guess we'll see when the Pentagon audit comes around. On military standards, Hegseth is pushing a gender-neutral review of fitness and readiness, but his track record, and perhaps his own words, make it clear he just wants to roll back the clock on women in combat roles. Again, this could be good in principle, but his attitude just doesn't seem genuine. Either way, the impact is real. Standards are shifting, and this could be the start of a new era, for better or for worse. Internally, it's a circus. His purge of senior officials and public feuds with his own aides have turned the Pentagon into a reality show, with more leaks and backstabbing than actual policy wins. Even some of his own loyalists have been tossed overboard. The result? Nobody knows what's coming next. It's hard to plan for a war against China and/or Russia when no one even knows our general stance from day to day. I don't believe Hegseth is the cause of the constant policy flip-flopping, but his appointment was definitely an effect of that kind of leadership. This administration just lives in chaos, and Hegseth was the perfect candidate to sow chaos in the Pentagon. And of course, there's the culture war. Hegseth made it his mission to scrub woke initiatives from the Pentagon, canceling studies on things the right deems wasteful like climate change. It's clear a lot of his efforts are just done to appease the 5 p.m. Fox News crowd, like renaming some bases. So does Hegseth have an impact? Absolutely. He's good at making noise, less good at building consensus or delivering clear positive outcomes. Notice how all these impacts are about politics and none are really about improving the US's warfighting capacity? That's exactly what his appointment was about. Until the dust settles, the only real certainty is that the Pentagon is more polarized and more unpredictable than it was before he showed up. Again, this may be a good thing, but I really have a hard time seeing how it's going to make our armed forces more competitive in the 21st century. So for his impact score, a 4 out of 10. If your metric is disruption, he's nailing it. If you care about lasting, focused change, then you may need to change your standards. I think enough's been said. That gives Pete Hegseth a Modern Problems Politician Review score of 4 out of 10. He's an interesting guy for sure, and I'm pretty sure this will become a textbook example of why putting loyalists in positions of power is actually detrimental. While he claims to be bringing a soldier's perspective to the top spot, all I see is a Fox News anchor riling up left-wingers without making real progress towards real military objectives. But of course, he could, and I hope he does, prove me wrong. Maybe there's a method to his madness. And with that said, I'd like to thank you for tuning into this episode of Politician Review. I know I said a lot, and a lot more could be said, but I sincerely hope you're able to learn something and form your own opinion about Mr. Hegseth. These are naturally only my opinions, and so I'd be more than happy to hear your thoughts on Secretary Hegseth in the comments. And as always, please drop any suggestions for future reviews or topics below. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.